Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It is Monday evenings, February 3rd, a little after 6 p.m. I feel good today. I hope you do. So I appreciate it. I have a great appreciation for this weekend. Our session Saturday and Sunday, and the energy was great, and it carried over with me even today. And I just felt good, felt rejuvenated. So, how do you guys feel? Any questions? Anybody? Anything you want to talk about before we get into this? Anybody want to start us off?
Run. It's Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
How are you? Look, I know we talked about prayer, but we said what we say the Lord's Prayer is the model prayer. So where is the Lord's Prayer found?
You're not talking about the prayer that's in Matthew?
Right. That's the model prayer, right?
I I've always heard it called the Lord's Prayer, but what's the difference? Do you have a difference in the two, Lord's Prayer and the model prayer?
Uh, it was a discussion in the jail, and I was told that that prayer is the model prayer, but we call it the Lord's Prayer. And they were saying the Lord's Prayer was found someplace else. So I was wanting to know if it was another prayer that is considered to be the Lord's Prayer.
Anyone want to help me out with this? He didn't tell you, Kathy, where the other prayer was located?
No, these are the ladies in jail now. They didn't. They
Okay.
didn't.
Okay.
So they waiting for me to bring them an answer back.
Um, I I don't want to. I like some help with this somebody, but I don't want to seem uh you know insensitive to anything. But the way I look at it now, Kathy, we are prayer. I don't even look at that prayer as a model of anything. Um, Prayer to me is what you're experiencing and what you're feeling and what your desires are. And I don't know. I think anything other than that, and I do have an appreciation for where people are. I don't mean this for that to sound, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like I came across, I guess, because I do take what you're saying seriously, but I don't know how to answer that. I
What
don't
was the question, Ron?
what the prayer about our Father who art in heaven. They're saying that's a model prayer, but it is not the Lord's prayer. The Lord's prayer is somewhere else. I don't know of any other prayer that is written in Scripture.
Oh, okay. That prayer that's in Matthew, it is it's a model based upon Christianity. But if you read not only the prayer but the scriptures around it, it says when you meditate, go into your closet, and your closet is you. Go inside of you, and when you go inside of you, these are the things that you focus on or that you meditate about. And then it goes into our Father which art in heaven, which actually in the Aramaic is a womb, which is universe, father, mother. Either one of those translations fits that, but father doesn't. And when you are meditating, you recognize the one who gave us life, who created us as the universe or a womb, which is father, mother. Meaning that the creator is not a man, the creator is not a woman, the creator is both masculine and feminine. It's not a man, it's not a woman, it is energy. It is the energy of life. It's the light of all lights for life. Is so what they put Father in there because they were writing a scripture that was dominated by males. If you look at the places where they gleaned these messages that they wrote, or the writings rather, those writings came out of Kemet. And in Kemet, the writings in terms of the universe, or the one that has created, brought us into creation, brought us into this earth, is feminine and masculine. However, the reason that we say that we came out of the womb of an African woman, it is referencing the spiritual womb of Isis, and Isis is deemed to be pagan by Christianity. When you look at this thing with our Father, that's why women don't have any space, any say so in the church, because it's all about men. If you go back and look at that through the writings of the Aramaic, you get a totally different story than what you get in the King James translation. And we have been convinced that the only translation of the scripture that's accurate is King James. And the others that are accurate are the ones that were translated by Europeans. But the messages that we have gleaned from what we have read rather, that's in the that comes from Kemet, come from the Kushite kingdom. Those messages from the Kushite kingdom are totally different in that they glorify, they are very, they lend their reverence rather to femininity, because nothing can be birthed in the earth without a womb. So when you ask a question about the scripture in Matthew, it is virtually impossible to address it without going into how it came to be, as well as what it represents for Christians. And when I say Christians, I'm talking about the Christians that have been taught by Europeans. Christianity, the European Christianity is the Christianity that we have been going by, that we have been following. And that is where the problem lies. That is the reason a woman can cook in the kitchen at church, and she can't be a pastor of a church until recently. A woman can sit in that pulpit, and the pastor or the preachers, males, are called reverend. She is called evangelist. So all of these things are chauvinistic. And I don't know any other way to talk about this without explaining the origins of it and what they represent today in terms of the denigrating of females. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes, it makes sense, but I sure couldn't go tell them ladies nothing, because I leave that alone after the night, because I couldn't explain that to them.
Okay. Honestly though, Kathy, some things that you talk about, that we understand, there's several reasons that you don't go at people with it. Number one is because it's difficult to explain that to someone who has not been taught.
Right.
Two, you could destroy them and put them in a state of flux. The other thing, they might not want to talk to you anymore because you're a heathen now. It's the other stuff that's easy to talk about. But when you start talking about the origins of things, it makes a total different impact on folk if you go back into the history of it. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm going to tell them when they start allowing men to come in Reverend Richards was coming in and talk to y'all. Thank you.
You're welcome. But you know, that was some things we taught on Monday night. I see nothing. You don't be giving this to nobody because they ain't ready for it.
Right.
And this is one of them. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, George. GC.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Again, I appreciate, just being on the call, and just as the question was asked in reference to the Lord's Prayer, and Pastor, you spoke about it in reference to the first line of the Lord's Prayer, Our Father which art in heaven. But in the Aramaic, you mentioned that it mentioned both the mother and the father. And so when we say Our Father which art in heaven, it talks about Abum Dwashamaya. And again, and the reason why I'm saying it, because I think in terms of just looking at what does that really mean, it says, O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos. You create all that moves in light. And I just take that one verse and just see how powerful it is when we do or have the desire to know the true meaning in terms of looking at it from the King James Version, looking at it from the Hebrew, looking at it from the Aramaic, looking at it from the Cush Kemetic teachings. And I think that it has so much more power, when we can understand the depths of what it is. But I think being able to have a understanding, and this is why, we truly appreciate being on these calls, because I think that it really gives us much more understanding and wisdom, to be able to realize how wonderful and marvelous we are made, but more importantly, being able to understand the true meaning of the Lord's Prayer. So I appreciate you sharing that, Pastor, in terms of, the father and mother, because again, we've always, when we read he, we read, what I mean, in that meaning, which is not, from what I know to come to know, that it gives you the full flavor. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, but I appreciate you, talking about that, because it talks about our birth and unity. And I just wanted to point that out. I'm done, Ron. Thanks for letting me share.
Also, when you talk about that, when you mention in heaven, this is talk about enlightenment. This is not talking about a place you're going to be when you die. This is not talking about that. Because quite frankly, we already living in the midst of death. Because the body is a corpse. So this is not talk about some heaven, somebody going to heaven and someone else is going to hell. And even though the scripture had been manipulated, if you read Revelations, where it talks about being cast into the lake of fire, that's not talking about hell. It talks about a place of repose, and even the worst translation in the world is the Greek, and it even says that. So I really hope that those of you who have not been further confused about this, and if you have any questions before we move from this particular question, which you're raising right now, if you don't mind, or if you have a comment, either one, quite frankly. Okay, Ron.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? Questions, comments? I wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about yesterday. I thought yesterday was awesome. And as I said, it was, I found it refreshing all day, just thinking about it. There was a piece, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but Audrey sent out a piece that I thought was kind of helped shed some light on things too. That I don't know if she wants to talk about it a little bit or bring it up. And because I thought that was awesome from someone else's perspective, and but it still kind of hit home very much so.
Yeah, I think it was awesome from a white perspective, white females.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was from a white female perspective. And if you want to read it, it's in today's Huffington Post. But it's called, let me look at it for a second. It's called,
excuse me.
I overheard two women discuss the quote unquote good old days. Here's the unpleasant truth people seem to forget. And this is a woman who's researching a book. Her name is Marie Bosstick. And she goes into a conversation she has with her mother about the good old days. And basically, she learns that her mother really had no voice in anything. What she was expected, her mother had attended college, but dropped out to get married, have kids. And then her mother got to a place in her own growth where she felt like, okay, I have the husband, the house, the kids, but she felt really empty. And it was a situation where she was working a full-time job. Her husband owned a small business, a grocery store. She was working a full-time job. She was working in the store for her husband. She was also taking care of all their kids. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 kids, taking care of all their kids, doing all the cleaning at home, all the cooking. And that was supposed to be her life. She had no say in the business, although she was married to the owner and she worked there every day. She had no say in anything. He made all the decisions. If he wanted to go out and buy something, he just went and did it without consulting her. So she felt, in the end, she felt like totally empty, like she had no recourse, she felt patronized, she felt unseen, unheard. And then eventually she ended up getting a divorce because she wanted to go back to college and she wanted more of her life. But I was just saying, man, if this is from a white woman's perspective and she felt unseen, unheard, patronized, taken advantage of, then I was thinking, man, oh man. And this was back in the maybe 60s, 70s, maybe earlier, a little earlier, because she was actually a little earlier, maybe 50s too, because she's like 91. But I was thinking, if this was how white women were treated back then my goodness, what was it like for our mothers and our aunts, and our grandmothers? Anyway, so that's why I sent it, because I thought the article was really relative to where what we talked about yesterday, and would kind of open it up again.
A couple things.
Anyway, that's basically a summary of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Audrey, a couple of things she said, and they're really at home. She worked every day right beside her husband, but she had to ask him for money. She couldn't do anything. She had to ask for money.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of got there, like, oh my God.
And then when she went for child support, he was remarried.
Yeah, he's remarried.
The woman he married had 3 children.
And the judge would.
And he didn't want to pay child support.
Right, he told the judge told her, he can't afford it. He has a new family. I mean, now if that happened with her going before a judge, a white lady in the late 50s, the 60s, whatever it was, what chance did a African woman have who went through the same thing? And when we hear about the abuse that took place, and the woman says, "Where am I going? I don't have any place to go."
Wow.
That happened so many times, and she was getting criticized for it rather than dealing with the source of her problem, that man who was beating her, and criticized for not leaving. Even where is she going with 3 or 4 children or 5 kids, no job opportunities.
Especially with no job opportunities, and no experience.
Yes.
Wow.
And this is the thing that gets me about that, is our expectation looking back at that, or our expectations are based upon our experiences now. And that cannot be, because the experiences are totally different than what they are now, than what they were then. She couldn't even get a job. An African woman couldn't get a job doing anything but washing some white folk clothes or ironing them or cooking for them. That was it. And then if she expressed exhaustion, or if she came and was not totally emotionally in the game, so to speak, doing her work, she was terminated. And she just left home after having gotten beaten and cutting the wood and doing everything for the house. So all of these things bleed into what we have been talking about for the last few days. So I also got a message today from Alexis, and she gave us permission to use her name, by the way. Alexis is one of those voices that you probably never hear on here or any place, because she doesn't talk that much. And it says that marry a man who wants to be a husband, not a man who just wants a wife. A man who wants to be a husband is a man who's willing to provide, protect, and fulfill your rights. He is ready to do whatever he can to make things work. A man who just wants a wife is a man who's only thinking about what you can do for him and not what he needs to do for you. I thought I liked the way it was constructed. And before I interject what I would like to say about it, I want to know if there's anyone else who would like to speak to that.
Well, I think she's absolutely right. Like in the article, the man got remarried like almost right away.
Yeah.
Because he wanted a wife. He didn't necessarily want to be a husband, but he wanted a wife. He needed somebody to cook and clean and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But I would ask though, what's her definition of a man who wants to be a husband? I mean, I know you gave a part of it, but I would like to hear some more elaboration about that. I mean, being a husband is more than just providing, I would say.
And protection. Protection is something we need to explore as well, and we will. But I think when I read this,
and providing needs to be explored. Providing is more than groceries and putting clothes on the back.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason our men wanted a wife and not a husband. I'm sorry, our women wanted a man, and that man wanted to be in charge of everything because he just wanted a wife. It's because that's all they knew. The church said that you're the man of the house, and and you don't have any backbone if you let that woman tell you what to do, that kind of thing. That's a man with a wife that's not a husband.
What about he who finds a wife finds a good thing? It doesn't say anything about the other way around.
No, it does not. And we know why it doesn't. And the other way around, I mean, the reason it's written that way is because a man can do anything he wants to do. And that has been instilled in us for the last 500 years under the understandings of Christianity. What Christianity had been teaching us is that the man is the man of the house, and when the man is not there, his son is the man of the house. And I know churches who teach that to this day. And so a lot of this is based upon the honesty, the reality that men do not know what a husband is, and women don't know what a husband looks like. And that therein lies the conflict. And when we make efforts to talk about it so that we can get some kind of clarity on what a wife looks like, what a husband looks like, what a man looks like, and what a woman looks like, we always get pushback. Well, what about the man? Well, first of all, the man has not been abused anywhere but near where the women have been abused. Whether we like it or not, the primary abuser of the African woman is an African man and an African white man and a white woman if she chooses to. Why do I say all of that? Because regardless of who they are, everyone is allowed to abuse a woman of color. Men don't know how to be men because they have been told as opposed to being trained, as opposed to living in examples of what masculinity looks like. The things that we taught in our family gatherings when we had conferences, whether they were men and women conferences, couples, whatever we had, we sought to explore and understand these things in order to create harmony in the house. Now, during those periods when we had those conferences, we were nowhere near where we are now in our understanding. Yet we were making efforts to bring harmony within that home by virtue of saying that this woman is not your child. This woman is not your servant. This woman is your wife, you're her husband, and she has a right to speak her mind. She has the right to make decisions. We talked about those things, but we never got into the depth of the hurt that had already been what?
Perpetrated.
Huh?
Perpetrated.
Yeah, all the hurt that's been, we didn't talk about that. And here we are talking about it. And I've gotten calls from females pretty much all day. And it's in reference to their hurt. And one of the females said to me, I had something I wanted to add, but I couldn't stop crying long enough to speak. That's the depth of pain that we are dealing with. And our acknowledging that, what do we get in return? We get men who are not comfortable with that because they don't want to give up their dominance and be a husband or be a partner in any relationship. Always been dominant. That is the European mindset about how you treat the female. You are the boss of her. She is your property. She is your servant. And those are the things that we were addressing yesterday, because I don't believe that we really knew or given thought to how hurtful that is to feel like you're not being heard, how painful it is to be feel like no matter what you say, you're always wrong, and decisions are always being made outside of your hearing. And when you make a decision, you are lambasted for having done that. You're out of place. That kind of thing. And the things that Ron brought up about the provisions and the protections, that kind of thing. I do want to speak to that, because that too is part of the pain that African females in particular are dealing with. And the difference is this: African females want to resist it, and when they do, they are made to feel like they are the angry black woman. White women don't care. As long as they get what they want, as long as they have their white privilege, they're great. Million of them in the street arguing about abortion. 2 million, 3 million about abortion. And then when the rubber meets the road, they vote for the man who ended abortion. So what does that say? That says to me that because you have the privilege that you have, you are not willing to challenge that privilege because you don't want to lose it, or you're afraid of losing it. You don't want to be free. You don't want to be healed. That's what it's saying to me.
See, I think it goes back further than that.
Go ahead, Ron.
Ever since the Europeans stepped foot in Africa, the world has been violent. And the world has been dominated by violence. And this country was founded on violence. And the black man was trained to be violent and to be dominated as he was dominated. And all the things we talked about, and the only reason I'm bringing this up, because I think you got to get to the root of things to kind of see solutions and talk about how change is going to take place. So this thing's a lot deeper, and I agree with everything's being said, but I think you just got to go back and look at it from its inception, and it was adopted by the church because Christianity was the chosen way of controlling the races and controlling the African in particular. So I just think, you know, it's more than just not wanting to change. I'm saying it's in the DNA, and it's all that we know. And you've seen glimpses of other things, and you know what it looks like, but that's all you know. And part of that violent history the one thing we haven't really talked about is what really is love, because love does not play a role in anything called a relationship in this country. So all of that stuff to me has to be unraveled, you know?
What do you mean when you say love does not play a part in any relationship in this country?
Well, think about it. We say I love you, I love you. This look at divorce and look at we all, no matter what happens, no matter what your intentions are, you still have a European mindset, and that is something that needs to be worked on, needs to be developed. So, love to me, it has also been defined to us what it's supposed to look like, and it is, we can say, you can say all you want that it is it's an unconditional thing, but is it really? Um, so the black man to me, in a lot of ways, has taken on the characteristics of his captor, of his trainer. So I just think all of that needs to be addressed too, to look at uprooting this.
I agree with you that the European mindset is at play with the African male because that's all we knew. However, I I don't agree that love does not play a part in any relationship in this country because um just
Well,
like
maybe I missed. Maybe I should. I didn't mean it in a relationship, but I'm saying the foundation of what love's supposed to look like. No, nobody is taught us that. Nobody talks about that. It's like, to me, they're growing up. I remember having a conversation with my grandfather. There are very few examples of manhood. I said that to him. There are very few examples of manhood, and I appreciated the man that he was. But just looking around at how people close to me related, the men and the women, just it's like, why bother? Why are you married? Why are you doing this kind of thing? So,
and I've seen relationships like that growing up, exactly what you described. And I've seen the relationship predicated on love as well. And as you said, we have been told what love is. However, there is something deeper in us that shows us what it is without us even knowing it, if we are desirous of it. If I look at you and I feel that kinship, and I'm not talking about kinship as a friend. I'm talking about deeper than that. And I make every effort to treat you in a way that's respectable all the time. I don't put you down. I don't denigrate you. I don't make you feel stupid. I don't make any efforts to dominate you at all. And and I have conversations with you before we purchase anything. You don't have to ask me for money. You know where it is, that kind of thing. There are relationships like that. It was not taught to us. Well, let me do it personally. No one taught me that. No one taught me that. But where did I get it from? I desired to be a man who was able to not only foster a relationship, but be that man that when people looked at him, they would see an example of what a relationship should be. I grew up the street from us, about 2 blocks or so over the hill and up the street from us. I saw men beat their women. I saw that. I saw men cut a woman. I never saw my uncles,
Yeah.
never saw them put their hand on a woman. I have never heard my uncles use profanity around or to any female in our family. I never saw that. So what I'm saying in essence is this: just like Jesus to black folk was different than Jesus to the white folks, that's the same thing with marriage. It's something in us that we brought with us that was not totally taken away from us, that stayed with us even through slavery, that gave us this sense of unicity with our wife or husband, with our friends. That's what made community so strong, because we loved each other in spite of what we had been taught. It's
Yeah.
recently that we began to be more European oriented in our mindset towards females. And that came from the producers of hip hop and rap. Clive Davis was one of them.
I
Jimmy,
agree. I think music did influence that. But
yes,
I also say that black men have always had a problem with intimacy.
I agree with that.
Black men have had a problem with it. That's all I'm saying. Um,
But all black men have.
well, we're talking in general here. I'm not talking about, maybe the men in our families, but what we're talking about here, because we were talking about yesterday, we were talking about globally.
Right?
So I'm saying the way we have been trained to be, uh, intimacy was not a part of that. Does it exist? Of course. That's why I love that little book that I found that you guys hear me talk about from time to time. But and I love this conversation. It's not just. I just think it goes deeper. I don't know. Huh?
At the onset, you said that this has been going on since we came in contact with Europeans. This violence has been going on,
Yes.
and this the efforts to destroy a cultural connection between male and female in the context of what African connections were with male and female.
Mhm.
And the efforts were to destroy it and replace it with the European mindset in relationship to females. And I'm saying that that is one of the reasons we so messed up now as males.
I agree.
However, I'm also saying that there was tremendous resistance from within, something that did not die in us, that caused some of us to say, no, that's a road I'm not going to travel. That's a line I'm not going to cross, that kind of thing. Like your granddaddy. You said that your granddaddy was someone who you admired. Did he beat his wife?
No.
No. So that's all I'm saying. Why didn't he? He was also in that mindset, but he was able to resist it. That's all I'm saying. Some of us are able to resist it, and some of us are not. Right now, where we are, I believe that. Well, Barbara made a statement. We got Trump right where we want him. But as our discussion, we were talking earlier, we are where we need to be. And where is that? That is making every effort to heal the female. Because if we don't heal the female, we will never be healed as men. If we don't heal the female, we will never have a nation. We'll always have a country. Does that make sense?
May I make a comment
Well, hold 1 second, Evan. Ron, does that make sense?
when you finish?
I see it slightly different, but yeah, it does.
Oh,
It
okay,
makes sense.
what's the difference? I want to see
That's
it.
okay. It's more, and it's more than just you and me on here.
I
So
know it is, but I want to see it because I'm not the only one who want to understand what's being said. And there are times where we have these discussions between one or two people, or three people, and it benefits everybody. Because if I'm seeing it wrong, I want to know.
I'm not saying you're seeing it wrong.
Okay, I want to know what you see differently. That's all.
Um, I'll come back to it. It's okay. Go ahead.
It's not okay, but I guess it have to be okay because I really want to understand it. I really do. But if not, that's fine. Evelyn?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm going to give you a personal story about my mom. She, in the era that she grew up in, it was allowed for men to beat their women. And my dad beat my mama bad. I mean, I've seen it so many times. And she really thought, she knew it was wrong, but she accepted it. And if she were to go somewhere, she would say, Lewis is going to beat me. And I had to see that. I saw it all. And I remember when Color Purple came out, and I wanted her to watch that with me. And she said, no, I don't want to see it. I said, why, Mama? She said, because I grew up on it and I'm in it. So I'm not the only one on this line who mom has been beaten. I've seen a gun drawn on my mom, put to her head. It is very imperative that we talk about this so we can get this done because the hurt is still there. And I talked to her about it because some things that I went through. But I want you to know this is something that we really need to heal from because I still carry the hurt and the pain that I saw. And I'm glad we have the platform. We have the family that we can share this with because I still hurt from that. And what we are doing, we should take this very seriously. And I'm not saying we don't. Some of us don't. But it's imperative that we get this right. It's not about an ego, men, melanated brothers. It's not about your ego. It's about your wife, your sister, your mom, and your daughter. We want to get this right so others can benefit from what we're dealing with and going through. Because this stuff is happening. It's still happening today. Women getting beat and all that stuff. So I want to heal. And if anybody can help me heal, it's got to be this family because it hurts so bad. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm done.
Thank you. I will say,
This CCAT, my father was abusive to my mom. He beat her. She had to leave home and walk all the way from, those of you that know Gaffney, from Tank Branch up to Pettytown to get away from him. Sometimes she would have to leave and go other places to get away from him. But I was really small, so I really didn't grow up seeing it because he didn't do it around me, but my sister and my brother saw it. And when I got old enough to understand things, they started telling me how abusive he was to Mama. And I found it, how I learned to deal with it, I was determined that I was not going to let that destroy me. It didn't destroy my sister, my brother, and, well, my brother, he hated him even up until the day my father died, where he left Gaffney running because he didn't want to pay child support. But when he finally decided after 43 years, and Reverend Richards, you probably remember, I just started praying and asking God to send him back here because I wanted to look him in his face and be able to, after I found it within me, to forgive him because I was determined I was not going to let it destroy me. And I end up and had to take care of him. And on his deathbed, he looked at me and he said, baby girl, he said, you think I don't love you? And I said, Daddy, I know you love me. And he said, I do. I really love you. But he ended up, he had Alzheimer's and in the process before he died. but I had to search within me to be able to cope with that. And it was, I mean, my mom had black eyes many times, but I didn't really know because, like I say, he did it not where I could see it, but my sisters and brothers can see it. But it was years because he left town. I never saw him. I had no communication with him. And then when he come back, I heard the Creator speak and say, you have to go take care of him. And I was like, Lord, I'm not going to take that man. He might want to kill me. You know, he might want to start having flashbacks. And then he kept pressing on me that I was going to have to take care of him. And I end up, and I searched within my heart, and I went back, and I took care of him to the day he died. So, and then my sister, when I found out I had another sister, was so hurt because he was abusive to her mom, which they never got married, but because him and my mom never got a divorce until he came back to South Carolina. But I had to talk to her, and now I know why I had to go through the process that I went through, because she was so hurt on the inside that even when she talked, you could hear the anger within inside of her. And I told her, I say, I understand how you feel, because he was abusive to my mom also. And she said he was even abusive to her, and she left home to get away from him. And so I end up having to talk to her, and I said, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive him, but forgiveness is for us. And it took her a minute, but now when she talk about him, she don't talk with such anger on the inside of her. And so I helped her to cope with what she was going through. I'm finished.
Thank you. That's why I want to talk about this. Because I'm not the only one who don't know how to deal with, don't know how to deal with the origins, rather, of this. That's why I am asking so desperately to talk to me about what you see that I don't see. Because if men can't talk about it and the origins of this abuse, how do we be an instrument of healing for the abuse that we caused? And I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about African men in particular that we caused in our women. I just want to know. That's all. I'm not trying to be antagonistic, controversial. I am looking for answers. That's all. Roy?
This is Cheryl. My home was filled with love and music, and my father was away a lot. He owned his own trucking company, and he was on the road a lot. But I discovered that he was not physically abusive. He was mentally abusive to my mother. And I was told that it was a Southern thing, that he had favorites. And so one of my sisters was his favorite. It was 8 of us. Excuse me. My exuberant great grandson. His abusiveness to us was different. It was not, he used to like to beat us, and he would beat us with a strap. For me, I think he only hit me twice. And his abuse was that there was a record that he would play and the song that he would sing, and it was called Mule Train. And you could hear the driver beating the horses as he was urging them onward. And to him, that was just a great thing. And when whenever he was going to beat anybody, he would play that. Um, I remember when I was a child, my mother would tell me I could go outside. We had screen doors that had latches way up high, so that we couldn't reach it. An adult had to let you out or in. And he would wait until I got to the door and he would lock the door. And I remember that to this day. Our relationship was a strange one because he told me, you don't have to love me, but you have to respect me. And I thought that was a peculiar thing to say to a child. I always did, I always have, I always will. But my father fed us. We ate everything he ate. We had neighbors who the adult would eat steak and the children would eat hot dogs. And mama said, no, 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 no. Whatever we eat, my babies will eat. And my father took her to the store faithfully every Saturday. She went in the shop. He gave her an allowance, and she could not exceed that amount of money. What I watched was our neighbors were so loving and so kind. They would always help her. And so even though he limited the money, he was very stingy with it. She managed to save money so that when we needed books and he decided he wasn't going to get it for us, she would get us books. And she would, a little dress here, a pair of shoes there. Um, but when I grew up, she always told me, your father's a very complicated man. He's had a difficult life. He's a self-raised man. His mother died when I think he was about 7 or 8. And for years, he could not read. He taught himself to read. He was a tremendous critical thinker. He had an eidetic memory. Anything he saw once, he could remember it. He was very proud. And, I remember when I was a baby, he hugged me a lot. In my teen years, it was difficult. And we had a lot of words, and we actually were about to come to physical blows because he called me a strumpet. And it just so happened because I read all the time, I knew what that was. And his reason was we had all gone out to, I don't know whether you all are old enough to remember the drive-in movies. We'd all gone out to a drive-in movie, and they said, Cheryl, we're going to drop you first because we know how your dad is. And he could look out and see a car full of people, and still he called me a name. And so my mother rushed into the room because we were going to go for it. Because you don't call me that. And I said, I'm your daughter. Do you know who you're saying that to? But at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, I did love my dad. But I decided that whoever I married, whoever I dated, was not going to be like my father. And when I talk to my nieces and my nephews, and I talk to my grandson, I tell them how important it is to be kind. I tell them how important it is to be thoughtful, how important it is to talk to your partner. Let her know what you're thinking. Listen to her when she talks to you. Try to feel what she's feeling. And if you can't, talk to her till you do. And I'm not saying because of me, but I know my sisters did the same. And my nephews are wonderful. They married wonderful women. I have one nephew who's just off the reservation. He's just not going to do right. But and my grandson is about to be engaged to a young lady who we just love, and he treats her like a queen. So what you're trying to do, if you're not already there, I believe you can get there, but you have to want to. And the rewards are just so beneficial, both to you and to your mate. And you'll be so happy that you did. Listening and communication is so important. And I'll say this, and then I'm gonna be quiet. My mother told me, um, our men are so, what was the word she used? I can't remember the word that she used, but basically, our men are broken. And they've been broken by institutional racism. They've been broken by the damage that was done to them during slavery. And so it's not to make an excuse, but to try to understand and to embrace them and to be open and to try to help them understand that you care, that you love them for who they are, but they need to love us for who we are. I'm done.
Thank you.
Richard, let me ask you a question. Do you think that, as I listen to her, my grandmother on my daddy's mother, she was mean, and I say mean as crap. That's the best way I can put it. She was really mean. And one of her daughters was the same way. She was mean. When I was small, she used to call me black, you little black thing, and then I come home crying, would tell Mama that she called me black, and Mama would go down there ready to jump on her. So my question is, do you think that by my aunt, my daddy, my other uncle, they were the one that's living now, the same way? They had this mean streak in them and abusive. So do you think that it's in the genes that they turn out like that? Because I know my dad was in service. And I know, sometimes people have a tendency when they're in service, it do something to them. But do you think it's the genes that, in the blood that is passed on?
A lot of things are genetic that deal with our emotions. And what I mean by that is, you've heard people say, that boy been here before. He talked just like uncle whatever who been dead for 30 years. So where did he get that from? Just like we have the abuses from slavery that's still with us in our DNA. Black people being afraid of water in our DNA, not because they don't want to swim, but because of what we went through, being drowned and watching others be drowned in punishment for things that happened. So yes, I do believe it's possible. However, I do not believe that it can't be fixed, that it can't be changed, that it can't be dealt with. I don't believe that. I believe that there is that it can be fixed, but you have to want to fix it. You have to have a desire to do better before you're going to ever do better. So that's my take on it. If anyone else would like to speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
I mean, I think some of those behaviors are learned too.
Yeah.
By and large, I would imagine that most of it is learned. I mean, because if you're seeing that during your whole lifetime, then that's what you know. That's how you know to be. So I think a lot of it is also learned.
Right? I can see that. And you have to have a desire not to be that way. My uncles were functional alcoholics, not abusive, but I made a decision that I would not be an alcoholic because I was not going to pass that on to my son. And here I am. And I still hold on to that today, making decisions about whether or not you're going to allow those kinds of traits that you grew up around continue in the family, or are you going to be the one to break that lineage? Anyone else?
Question. I know this is the kind of thing that the religious folks would call a generational curse. Do you think that that is a generational curse?
I don't even know, Audrey. And the reason I say I don't even know is because when I look at the word curse, it talks about uncovering something as opposed to what we have, the way we've been using it. I think that as one time, Ron, didn't you teach a lesson dealing with the curse?
Yeah, it is uncovering something, but it also means curse in the way that you all we have been we understand it to mean.
Okay.
It can be either one. Yeah.
So that being the case, kind of difficult to know whether it's uncovering something that needs to be changed or whether it's something that's going to have an adverse effect on your family. I guess
Like
that's the
that.
same thing though, because once it's uncovered, you have an adverse effect until you change it, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds to me like it can be both.
So that's how I see it, Audrey.
Okay, because I think I'm seeing it now as based on our desire. No matter what it is, there's always an opportunity for it to change.
Yes.
And if we have a desire to change it, then I would imagine then our actions would sort of follow until we get to a place where we have substituted the newer actions for the past ones. So anyway, yeah, I think there's just anything, there's an opportunity to change. Because I mean, enlightenment can come like that. Just, you know.
And I think sometimes people are so isolated around people who are doing the same thing until it becomes normal to them. Doesn't make it right. But as we said earlier, that's all they know.
True.
But at some point, someone has to feel within themselves that this needs to change. And it may not change with that generation, but at some point it will change.
When I went and started doing jail ministry, it was a lot of young ladies in there that had been abused by their fathers, and I found myself talking to them and encouraging them. And one young lady, I remember her daddy took a toothbrush and sharpened it on the end and would jig it in her mouth and end up, and she had to have every last one of her teeth pulled. And she said, I don't even have money to buy false teeth, and this was done to me when I was young. And she said, I hate my father. I can't stand him. She said, and I'm actually scared to get out of jail because I'm afraid that he may come looking for me. And I talked to her, every time I go up there, I would talk to her and encourage her. But when that young lady before she got out of jail, she found it within herself to forgive her daddy for what he did. And she told him he said, I'm so sorry for what I did to you, and I love you. Please forgive me. And she forgave him. But it wasn't long after she got out, he got sick and he died.
Sometimes that's how retribution comes. That's why I don't believe that physical retribution is warranted. I believe that everything is spiritual, and we should look at it that way, and we should live that way. And I believe that the reason we are talking the way we are is because of the worst that's going to happen to people in this country and around the world as a result of what we have as an administration now is going to get far worse than we could ever imagine. I believe that. And that is one of the reasons I believe that is important also for us to understand what does it look like when a man talks about protecting or providing. What does that look like? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Charles said. Well, you brought it up. What does it look like? Provisions.
I don't know. Yeah.
So you upset now?
Huh?
You upset?
Pass. I don't know. Yeah, I
Okay.
brought it up. I was gonna bring it up as a question.
Okay.
I think this is Barbara. I think we have to look at that not only from the man's perspective, but the woman's perspective, the feminine perspective as well, because you can have someone say, I go to work, I come home, I give you the money you need, and I make sure that you have a safe place. So that's protection and providing from his perspective, potentially. But from a woman's perspective, it may be something totally different. In other words, the fact that you go to work and you bring home money to contribute to the family is a given for that woman. That's what you're supposed to do. And so it should not be a quote unquote chore, and that seen as a chore. Being safe means not only that you protect me from anything external that could harm me, but you protect me from you harming me if it relates to tearing into my emotions and my psyche and the unappreciation for me. That from a woman's perspective, that can be defined in a different way, and I hope you're following the distinction that I'm attempting to make. Thanks.
I am. Any questions or comments about that? I think that protection, when we talk about protection and provision, the things that that we're supposed, as Barbara said, about um, groceries, taking care of the household, kids, etc. That's a given. Provision goes both ways. At least that's how I see it. The greatest provision that can be brought into a family, especially those who are building a family as a man, anyone, my husband, wife, whatever, is a balancing of emotions, healthy emotions, whether it is a marital family or just a family structure, period. There are emotions that are brought into a family that is not always going to be good. Yet they can be handled in such a way, or approached in such a way that they do provide strength to the family. But if the emotions are challenged and they result in negativity towards each other, then this is not a provision as much as it is a means of self-destruction. Does that make sense?
Yes.
An emotionally challenged family, does not usually find peace within the confines of the home or in their interpersonal relationships. George?
Yeah, in the article that Audrey, you sent, the woman, she had talked about how she dealt with her anger or her emotions when it came to what she was going through, and that she would, have dishes and, would I guess throw the dishes and expressed her anger or emotions in that way. And something that she also said to her daughter was, but this is just the way it is. But how do we deal with our emotions, when it comes to, anger? And, it said that anger is emotions like out of control, but passion, is anger that is. And so that passion to know that how angry we can be about something, having the opportunity to be able to talk to someone or to express ourselves. It is, and that's, I believe, why we're having the conversation. So it's really hard for me tonight to even, just expound on it in a way where what you say does affect others. But I think it's so important that we're able to reach out to each other, or to be able to know that there is someone that you can speak with, converse with, because just like she was going through in terms of dealing with her husband, but how did she deal with her emotions? And I think that, you said something, Audrey, in terms of, your father, in terms of being a soft-spoken person, or a person that he may have been looking at it in terms of how to protect you or how to protect, the children, and I think we all are in situations where, we experience things that can cause us to be angered. But this is, so, so important that we're having a discussion, because there's thoughts that we all have. And I think it goes back to, again, how do we communicate? How do we, share our experiences in that way that can bring healing? Because sometimes people don't want to, talk about when I say the truth, there's things that, we all go through. And I'm just humbled tonight, because when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot that I knew about the South. I knew my parents grew up in the South. And I think as I'm listening, when we talk about history and we talk about our ancestors, this is what drives me, where no one is perfect, but this is why my passion or my desire to work with, young people is to try to at least share in a way that they can see the importance of how we respect each other, but more importantly, how we respect our mothers, how we respect women. And I think that we all have goals and desires, that we strive for. And that's when I share with you, Pastor. There's so many, rules and regulations and commandments, but if we could just get the one right, to have respect for each other, or when I say love each other, I mean in that way where you don't have to say nothing, but like you said, I can see it, I can feel it. I know you care. I know what people are sharing means a lot to all of us. And so when one person hurt, we all hurt. I know I'm hurting tonight. I'm broken tonight a little bit because, well, what can I do to reach out to say I love you? Or what can I do to reach out to say if it's a hug, if it's whatever that might be in terms of our vibrations. So I'm grateful for the conversation, but I know too that it can be hard, to express, our thoughts and our feelings. And so I truly appreciate what has been put out there in the macro because it's something without a doubt that we all need to meditate on. So thank you for letting me share my thoughts. But I appreciate you sharing that article, Audrey, and for all of you who shared thus far. My meditations are with you and for you, and even for myself, that I can better understand, be the best man that I can be. So thank you for letting me share. I'm done.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Reb, and good evening, everyone. One question or statement that I have. When we give attention to the female because she's been abused, I'm giving attention to the female because she's just been abused. And as it relates to African American men, I'm not giving attention to females because she's been more abused than the African American male. I'm just giving attention to it because she's been abused. And when I hear the African American the female has been abused more than the male, then we start quantifying things. And when you look at that and you look at it in the physical world, it's been said to us males, don't marry a woman who make more money than you. So in my stance with Jews, no, they don't respect my Holocaust. Yet whether it was 6 million with them or 6 people, it was enough to affect their outcome. So the attention that I give for Black female is not because you were abused more than me. It's just because you were abused. The other thing I want to offer is this. When I protect or give provision, the reason that they're safe with me is they can disagree with me. The reason that they're safe with me is they can walk away from me and know they can come back. Just like when I walked away from y'all 2 years because I was pissed off at something. I knew at any given time I could always come back, create a new faith. So in my provision and protection of people, number one, they're safe. Number two, they can challenge me.
Thank you, sir.
Monique challenges me all the time. That's what she's supposed to do because I'm right on everything. I just ain't righteous on everything. So those are the 2 things that I want to add. I give attention to the abuse of African American females because you were just abused. Not because you were just abused more, Because if we're basing it on quantity, if the Puerto Rican female has been abused more than the African American female, hypothetically speaking, then that's who I get. No. If you have been abused, that's why I give my attention and sympathy to you. It is not based on numbers.
Thank you.
Remember, you understand that? Or does anyone understand that?
I don't think anyone was trying to quantify it because you can't quantify abuse. However, if I look at it historically, I see from the first time that abuse entered into our society, the target of that abuse has always been the African female, regardless of whether it was in Africa in 335 BC, or whether it was in America in 1720. And today, the target of abuse has always been the African female. And a quantification of that is not necessary, I don't believe, when you can look at the historical reality of it. Now, as far as the question of protection is concerned, I want us to hold that one until the weekend. And the reason I say that is because I want you to think about this whole idea of protection, this whole idea of hurt. I think is undeniable. And if the words that these ladies spoke and the regurgitation of their pain and the honesty with which they spoke, as well as the transparency, if you could not, and I'm not talking about you, Judge, I'm talking about period, if you could not feel the energy of the pain that were in those words, the question becomes, why? Why is it that you could not feel it? Is it because it's more about you than the pain we're dealing with, that we're talking about? Or is it more about looking for a way to get around the reality of this pain and the source of this pain? If it came from us, and it did, the question is, where did we get it from? And I think we've covered that ground earlier. Knowing where we got it from, we talked about that. Knowing that it's there, we talked about that. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? And I do not think that we can do much about it, if anything at all, without first looking at what is meant by the words that we use, like the provision statements, like the protection statement. What does that mean? What does it look like when the cosmic mother is on the throne? That simply means that the respect for the African femininity is when we say the cosmic mother on the throne. And to understand the power of that, then we begin to understand why the abuse was targeted towards the African feminine energy, because you dominate it, you dominate everything else. And right now, as we speak, this country is being dismantled. And our objective have always been to preside over the dismantling of this country and the building of a nation. And we know that building of the nation has to be birthed. And if it's birthed, it has to be birthed from a womb. So that brings us to, what is the relationship between the cosmic mother, which is femininity, and masculinity, when it comes to birthing a nation. Those are a couple of things that I would love to address this weekend. Why this weekend? Because we have consecutive days starting on Saturday, and it gives us opportunity to contemplate what that means to us and how it has related to us in the past, as well as how it relates to us right now. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
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 It does.
So I would appreciate if we were to table that until Saturday, and we'll pick up with that. Is that okay? Unless there are questions or comments, of course.
Pastor, this is Kathy. I have one question that I want to, I have a thought. It's a question in the form of a question, but I'm not seeking the answer tonight. I'm okay to let it go over to Saturday, but I want to think about this too.
What?
Because I've given a lot of thought to this word protection and what it
Okay.
looks like. And so my thoughts or my question on that is, protection, am I correct in thinking that the African, the cosmic mother or feminine energy also provides protection to masculinity as well? And I'm
that's what we
speaking beyond physical. I'm speaking beyond physical protection of, I'm going to keep you safe in my home. I'm going to keep you where no intruders. I don't mean in that way. There's another level of protection that is spiritual, that if we get a better, in my opinion, if we get a better understanding of what protection looks like, both not only physically but spiritually as well, we will see that we are two sides of the same coin, and that we are partners. And I think, as Evelyn says, that we're not enemies, but we're not the enemy, but we're the energy. And if we look at it that way, I'm just thinking it through. So I just want that thought to be there for us to discuss on Saturday as well.
Thank you. I really believe that when we understand it from a spiritual perspective, physical protection becomes moot.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too, but I hadn't thought it all the way through, so I don't want to try to discuss it. I just want to put it out there for food for thought.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And that's what we'll do. And I ask each of you to think about that. See, what does it mean to you? Those two aspects, whether you're thinking about it from a physical or spiritual, with us really knowing that the one that truly is protection will be spiritual. Any other questions or comments other than about that? Because we're going to do it on Saturday. Okay.
I think I was thinking along the same lines as Kathy, because I think provision, more than just physical, it has to be making space for each other, mentally, emotionally, all of that. But anyway, yeah, we can discuss it on Saturday.
Okay.
I'll think about it some more.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ron?
I don't have anything.
No. Okay. I expected you to bring it to an end. Thank you, guys. That's all.
Okay. All right, everybody have a good week, okay?
Thank you.
Saturday.
Have a good night.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Take care,